Deputy Speaker, there was a recent article that was authored by the Vice-Chancellor of La Trobe and the Vice-Chancellor co-jointly of the University of Melbourne, and they said in that, I'm quoting, "It is no small achievement when an often divided and fractious sector unites around a major change." And having lectured and indeed been involved in administration at a number of Australian universities, I must say that must be an understatement of Goliath proportions. It's like herding cats wearing tweed jackets trying to get universities to agree on anything. But with the notable exception, I must say, of the University of Canberra, who is sticking out like a sore thumb on this one, there is almost unanimous agreement amongst the university sector that these reforms should be supported. And in this same article, it is stated at stake is whether a viable higher education system can endure. Though much rhetoric focuses on the Whitlam promise of free higher education, the present system was established by the Hawke government from 1989. It abandoned a brief experiment with free places as inequitable. And what has been amazing about listening to successive runs of this debate is that there is a 1974 argument with respect to higher education reform, and then there's a 2014 argument with respect to higher education reform. The 1974 policy argument dominated the higher education space for close on 3 decades, probably 25 years. The 1974 question is this: could Australia increase the percentage of low-income students in tertiary education by making tertiary degrees free for all tertiary students? That was a social policy argument that dominated the space for decades. But it was also conducted for decades in an environment where the Australian tertiary sector existed in a global market that was relatively stable, certainly comparatively amazingly stable. For decades, we were asking ourselves the question whether universal low or universal no fees would be able to achieve greater participation for the sons and daughters of low-income earners. That was a very logical question to ask for several decades. Logical because we were involved, firstly, in a ceteris paribus environment internationally. Things weren't changing around us, but logical also because we really didn't have the answer. 2 observations about that debate. The first is the central question of that debate has now been unequivocally, empirically answered by every single major factual review of the sector. Does introducing deferred fees for students decrease the percentage of low-income students? No, it does not. Once introduced, does expanding the share that students are required to fund their fees decrease the percentage of low-income students? No, it does not. Are fees the primary or even a substantial determinant of the percentage of low-income students? No, they are not. In the 1990s, HECS payments went up, in fact, largely under the members opposite, nearly 8-fold to $900 million. Higher education participation went up from 400,000 to 525,000. Lower or no fees does not address the real or actual determinant of participation, which is about social conditions, parental expectations, secondary school preparation. The social policy question has been answered. No one opposite has offered anything that resembles empirical evidence to suggest otherwise. It is a dead question. The way in which you increase participation is by increasing scale. But more fundamental to that point is the circumstances that have prevailed for decades while we answered this question are now changed irrevocably, fundamentally and with a quite astonishing speed. There are 2 basic changes. The number and quality of Asian universities has increased at absolutely astonishing speed, and the number of students that now move from nation to nation to pursue tertiary education has similarly risen in astonishing numbers. Basically, what we're facing is that tertiary education has become a globally traded commodity. And what happens if you do nothing in that environment? Well, we had the lessons of that under the members opposite. From 2009-10 peak, where there was no reform, and I will admit some bungling along the way under the members opposite, there was a loss in billions of dollars in export income from the tertiary sector. Between 2009 and 2012, the number of international student enrolments fell by 130,000 students. That is not the indicator of an Australian tertiary education sector in good health. That is the indicator of one in great need of reform. And indeed, when you look at the consensus around the grave necessity of a reform, go no further than the universities themselves. At the Australian Catholic University, quote, "Rejecting the package wholesale is not a vote for university equity, it is a vote against reality." Universities Australia, it is simply not possible to maintain the standards that students expect or the international reputation that Australia's university system enjoys without full fee deregulation. Regional Universities Network, the only way the sector can maintain quality and remain internationally competitive is through the deregulation of student fees. The 1974 argument's over.
Can I call